In looking at how the about section is made, is trying to decide whether I wanted to really pull that apart or not, and I'm thinking I'm not going to. And let me show you the reason why. When we look in the HTML code, this about section is built differently than the other things, and it's good as an example of how to do that kind of thing, but it's not how we would want to build it if we were going to change the layout. So see if I can make sense out of what it's doing here. Let me find the section again for us. So the about section, when we open it, it's a unordered list, a UL, okay? And then each item is placed as an LI, a list item, and it's using this before class in the UL to make that timeline stripe, and the before class to do, I guess it was the border that I cut out, and then the image is the division inside that list item, and then the panel. So the timeline image and the timeline panel, I'm fine with that, how that's done, but using the unordered list to do the layout is going to cause us problems if we try to undo it. So most of the other sections that we have are built differently, and it's kind of the standard Bootstrap way of building things. So if we look at in the portfolio section, here's our container. So the section, and then it has a container inside the section, and for the titles it has this text center division, and then for the images and the layout it has a class of row with flex assigned to it, and then inside of that it has these other classes with these indicators that tell us how it's going to act in the layout. And this is this is what Bootstrap does best. So we want to use this kind of method if we're going to create our own section. So this translated into normal English would say columns large 4. So when the layout is large, it's going to make 4 columns or this single item is going to take up 4 column spaces out of 12. So this is a 12 column grid. Okay, when the screen shrinks down to a small size, it's going to make just one of these columns take up, one of these grid items take up 6 column spaces, and that's what we're seeing right now. And when it's MB, what does that mean? Can't remember. Well, that's I think the size of the thing. So there's just 2 divisions here. Either if it's really large, there'll be 3 across, so 3 times 4, or 2 times 6. So that's what we're seeing. And the smallest, maybe that's what MB means. It'll do a single image. But I don't think that's what MB means. I don't remember what MB is. Okay. And if we go up to the next section up here where there's 3 across, let's look at that. So that's our services section, and we open that, open its container with its centered heading. Okay, that's the text center, and then the row also has text center, so we can get everything centered. But looking in that one, it says our division is medium 4, so it's always going to try to do 3 across, 3 out of the, so 3 times our 4 column units. They're going to take up 4 column spaces. As we get narrower, there is a break point, which is the medium point. So after medium it does 4, but before that it'll just fill the whole thing. So it's kind of an opposite way of thinking. That pattern is also used in the layout for the team here and the logos and other things. So if we're going to redo how this content works in the timeline, we want to copy that method because that's going to work better. So let's see if we can do that. And it will mess up some things, but I guess it's better to make a new section and then copy things over that didn't copy well. that'll be a better way to do it. So in the same way that we made this new section copying, we're going to make this one into a new section. So instead of, well, let's see, I do want to keep about though. So it's tricky when you mess with a section name, and the section is tied up into our navigation, the menu at the top, so I want to be careful with that. So we'll copy the section and change the navigation. That's probably best, because that's something you need to know how to do too. Okay, so let's go to, we'll use the services as our model because that has more of what we want. And instead of doing 3 across, we're going to do 2 across as our target, in the same way that the top one does 3. So we're going to go to the HTML, find our services section. There's the portfolio grid, and that's too high. Masthead services. So we're going to copy all the way down to, oh, let's just copy the whole thing. That's safest. Okay, so I'm going all the way from this commented section to this next comment. You can see I have both the opening section tag and the closing section tag. So I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go down to the right place. I miss it. Yeah, there's the time. Okay. And I'm going to paste it in. So this one I'm going to change the name to history. Change the ID name of the section to history. Leave container. Change this to history. And that's just Greeking, so we don't need that. And we have 4 of these right now. I'm going to change it to MD column 6, like I said. And I'm going to keep 4 of them, which means I need 1 more. So I'm going to copy, and to know what to copy, if things are tabbed in layout correctly, it's easier to see. So the opening division is here, the closing is right below it. You can see that easier right up here. So we go from 1 column medium 6 to another one. So I'll copy from this one, it'll be easier that way, and paste it in. So now I have 4, but the innards of these are weird. That's not what I want. I want the innards that I have on the timeline to replace this. So I'm going to go down to the about timeline here, and here's the list item that opens and closes here, but I don't want the list item structure. I want the innards though. So I'm going to take all of the innards there from that opening division. It closes here to another opening that closes here. So I'm going to copy that and go to my first one in my new history section, and I'm going to replace the span, the H4, and the paragraph with my new content. I'm going to go back and do that with the next one. So I got the first one with the full broken nuts. So I'll carefully copy this next one. Here's the LI opening, LI closing. Copy that and take it to my second section, which is here with the span, the H4, and the paragraph. And so there's 1, 2, 3. It's easy to get lost here. So I'm in my history section now. I replaced those 2. Here's the next one. So I just have 1 more. And that'll be this one. I'm leaving out the be a part of our story. Hope you don't miss that. Maybe I'll put it in, but in a different way. So there's the about section. There's the span. Nope, missed it. Span and paragraph. There it is. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to get messed up is this timeline image thing. Well, maybe not. Maybe it'll just work. Maybe I'll be lucky. So here's our about as it is now, right next to the portfolio. So let's refresh. And there we go. So we go from our portfolio to a history section. And that's not bad. So I lost the sizing on things, and here's the old about. So let's see what this does. Nope, that's the timeline. There we go. So we can see it's doing what I wanted it to do. It's not great yet, but at least I know that it's working with what we told so far. So it's going to do 2 across until it gets to that medium size, and it's going to jump to singles. There we go at this point. So maybe I want that to break earlier because this is a little bit weird. No, it still works. So here, this content is a top and bottom because we didn't tell it to do anything different. It was doing the side by side in this version, but that's because the image and the text, which I want to do up here, but the class that was doing that, we lost it. So in this version we had the image rounded circle thing, and our timeline panel has a margin here that's big enough to allow for that image, right? So we need to get both of those parts. So the timeline panel does a position relative, floats it to the right, and has the padding. So if we were to take off the float, what am I missing here? Did I not do a... So we could do it that way. I thought that turning that off would have gotten rid of it. And this one, the image is taking up its space. Let's go back to the panel. The panel is only working when it's a child of a list item. So I want it to do what it's doing just even when it's a timeline panel class. So because I don't see this anywhere else, I think I have to copy the whole thing. And I'm going to go to my styles and make sure I don't have a timeline panel class in here. I don't think I do. Here's the timeline heading, portfolio, timeline image, yeah, but no timeline panel. So let's put in a timeline panel class here. And I'm just going to take the timeline panel class, copy it, and add it in as a standalone thing that doesn't have the parentage requirement of being in a timeline in a list item. It's just going to be straight down to that class, anything that has that class. So let's see if that helps us with our stuff here. Okay, so it did. So it gave us that left margin. There we can see it. It doesn't do anything with our image here. So the similar problem, that image was shrinking to its size and being controlled only when it was a child of the unordered list. So let's go back to our style sheet and add that qualifier as well. So here we see timeline list item, timeline image. So let's include in our styling, if it's just a plain old timeline image, it'll do all these same things. there we go. So then it does the shrinking down thing. So now we have basically what we were trying to do here, which only activates on the smallest screen, but without the list items. And what this should allow is when we go bigger, oh, except it breaks there. That's goofy. So it works when it's 4 across, but when it gets really big, why does it even do that? Oh, that's the about. There we go. Yeah. Confused by the replication here. Okay. So that's more the layout I was hoping for, to do that 4 across thing with the spacing that we had in the timeline, but not have the timeline list item problems when we are dealing with it. So this works better. This is more what I want, and I still have all of this because I just copied it. I still have that rounded image class in there, which I had gotten rid of the border radius. I could put that back in. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. So there are some things that are a little bit weird here with the I want more spacing in there, and maybe I want a bigger image, but everything is going to be easier to control now that I have it the way I hope to have it. So if we go back to our styles, we can change some of those things. So the panel itself, instead of having just 100 pixel spacing here, if I want bigger, I can do that like this. So if that's 150, it's going to give me more space, which means I could make the image part bigger. So instead of, so what I do, I added 50. Let's just add 40 to this, it'd be like 120. So that means I can have a bigger image. And let's try adding more margin on the bottom. So here's top, right, bottom is 0. Let's see if this works. There we go. So that gives us more space, top and bottom, to deal with that. Okay, so that was much easier because we pulled it out of that weird situation where we had the timeline thing. Okay, one last thing, since we made a new section, let's redo our thing here before we delete the old about section. So here, about still goes to the about, but we want this, instead of about, to be history, and go to the history. So if we go to the HTML, we already changed the name of this section, its ID, to history. So we just need to change our navigation at the top. So here's our navigation. Change it to go to hashtag history and change the text to history. So now it says history at the top and it goes to history. From services to history. Okay, so now I can get rid of the about section. So getting rid of sections is dangerous, but fine if you get the whole thing in one clean strike. So here's the beginning with the comment. Oh, I'm trying to move the highlight. Here we go. And go down to the end. So here's the end of the section. So after the history, we have my image above team, which I added before. So check again, make sure it's only that from section opening to section closing, and I can delete that. And now I no longer have that timeline. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and end this recording.